slides. I say something wrong, it's not because I am preoccupied. It is simply because I made a mistake.
Because you thought your ass worked.
I don't know where they're at. We can go with Friday night football, Thursday night football, but I have been perfectly fine. Okay, where does this go? Okay. We are in Acts chapter 12, and we're going to have the full, just the whole chapter, verses 1 through 25. I'm going to begin with a little bit of a history. We're talking about Herod Agrippa, is the king that is in chapter 12. Chapter 12 is, to my knowledge, from what I could find, is the only chapter where Herod Agrippa is mentioned. Now, it only mentions him as Herod, but it is King Agrippa. And the reason I have the beforehand is because in 164, about 200 years prior to this, where we are in chapter 12 now, is the revolt of the Maccabees. And then about close to 20 years, 17 years later, the Hasmonean dynasty takes over. And during the Hasmonean dynasty, there's this, the Jewish people to some extent have independence, but it's not independence in, the Hasmonean dynasty is not descendants of King David, so they have independence, at least as far as the Hasmonean dynasty is concerned. Jewish people are ruling Israel. Well, about 104, something that really would impact the Jewish people quite a bit, up until the time that is Herod Agrippa, is the conversions of the Idumeans. John Hyrcanus has become the high priest / ruler of the Hasmonean dynasty. And the green is what they control prior to him when he comes in, and the purple is what he takes over. Well, down at the bottom is Idumea, and the Idumeans are children of the Edomites. They're Edomites. And as he conquers these people, he says, if you're going to stay in this area, you have to convert. Either you leave or you convert to Judaism. It is a forced conversion. You have the choice. You stay or you leave. And the Idumeans decided, well, we want to stay here. So they said, we will convert. We will take up all the Jewish customs. We will do the sacrifices. Now, as Edomites, and they were not ethnically Jewish, they could not go into the temple, which would bother later Herod the Great. But they just changed to becoming Jews, basically, without the ethnicity. So in 63, Israel loses its independence due to a conflict in the Hasmonean family. Two brothers want power. There's basically this civil war, and they ask the Republic of Rome to come help them. Well, the Republic of Rome comes and helps them. They settle the fight, and Rome says, you're no longer going to have independence, but now you are going to be part of the Roman Republic. You're going to be under us. And in comes the Herodian dynasty. It's not, Herod the Great isn't immediately, his father and I think grandfather are prior to him kind of rulers, but Herod then becomes king. He gets put in as king, Herod the Great. Herod the Great rules for about 36, 37, 40 years. Different dates put him differently. And he is the person who's in charge when he is the king when Jesus is born and is told that he's going to have the Magi come and say that the King of the Jews has been born, and he's like, no, I'm the King of the Jews. He wants to be King of the Jews. He has been born as an Idumean. He is an Idumean. Josephus says that he is Edomite by birth, by his father's side, Arabic by his mother's side, but in practice he is Jewish. That he does the customs of the Jewish people. So he wants to be king of the Jews. So that's why he's bothered by the idea of Jesus being king. He even marries a Hasmonean from a princess from the Hasmonean dynasty because he wants to be solidified that he is legitimately king of the Jews. Well, then we get to Herod Agrippa in 41, who is his grandson. When Herod Agrippa was a child, he was sent to, or a young boy, he was sent to Rome to basically rub shoulders with the Roman emperor, those growing up around Rome, and he studied among them. And there's different reasons why he may have been sent. Did they just not like him? What was the pure reason? But nonetheless, he rubbed shoulders with the people there. He is, unlike his grandfather Herod the Great, he is not a good financial manager. Herod the Great becomes rich. Herod Agrippa is always in trouble financially. He is continuously goes to prison because he's in debt. And finally, Caesar Gaius comes to power, who we know as Caligula through history. And he frees Herod Agrippa and actually gives him a little bit of area to rule, but not he does not give Judea and Samaria. Not until 41 does Caligula is killed, and Herod helps Claudius to become emperor. And Claudius gives to him Judea and Samaria. Agrippa he's from the Edomian, and there's a question how much, he's a good politician. We know at least that much, but he also seems to be quite sympathetic to the Jewish people and to at least Judaism as a religion. Because when he becomes king, when he goes to Jerusalem, when he gets to Jerusalem, he does the sacrifices. He gives his indebtment of sacrifice. He gives to the temple people to do the sacrifice. There's a story of a couple years after he becomes king, in 42, I believe, the Roman Senate, makes Julius Caesar, deifies him, says Julius Caesar is now a god. And some people decided, you know what, we're going to put statue of Julius Caesar, now since he is God, we're going to put him in synagogues. Well, they put Julius Caesar's statue in some synagogues in Judea. Well, Herod hears about this and is like, no, this is not going to work. This is against the Jewish religion. This has to go. So he writes to Claudius, writes to the emperor, and says, this has got to stop. We cannot do this. And Claudius actually is okay with it. He's like, okay, take the statues out. So the Jewish people, for the most part, when you read Josephus, he has nothing bad to say about Agrippa, other than Agrippa is not a good financial manager. But the Jewish people like Agrippa, and Agrippa wants to do what is kind of good for the Jewish people, which we would see. And it's a question, again, does he like them, or is he just simply a good politician, which he was a good politician with the way he got to power. There's a story of him when at one time he is reading publicly in the temple. They allow him into the temple, which I don't know why they did. He was not a Jew. But he's allowed into the temple, and he's told, and he's reading the book of Deuteronomy. And at one point, he comes to this passage in Deuteronomy 17:5, where it says, you may not put a foreigner over you who is not your brother. And the story goes, as is said in the Mishnah at least, that he breaks down and cries that he is not a brother. And the Mishnah credits this to why God makes Jerusalem fall, because they said he should have stood up. The rabbis should have said, you're right, you're not. You shouldn't be a ruler. Instead, they go up to him and they say, no, it's okay. You are our brother. So that is kind of the background of who Herod Agrippa is in chapter 12. Now we get to the passage. We can all read this together. About that time, Herod the king laid violent hands on some who belonged to the church. He killed James, the brother of John, with a sword, and when he saw that it pleased the Jews, he proceeded to arrest Peter also. This was during the days of unleavened bread, and when he had seized him, he put him in prison, delivering him over to 4 squads of soldiers to guard him, intending after the Passover to bring him out to the people. So Peter was kept in prison, but earnest prayer for him was made to God by the church. Now when Herod was about to bring him out, on that very night, Peter was sleeping between 2 soldiers, bound with 2 chains, and sentries before the door were guarding the prison. And behold, an angel of the Lord stood next to him, and a light shone in the cell. He struck Peter on the side and woke him, saying, "Get up quickly." And the chains fell off his hands. And the angel said to him, "Dress yourself and put on your sandals." And he did so. And he said to him, "Wrap your cloak around you and follow me." And he went out and followed him. He did not know that what was being done by the angel was real, but thought he was seeing a vision. When they had passed the first and the second guard, they came to the iron gate leading into the city. It opened for them of its own accord, and they went out and went along one street. And immediately the angel left him. When Peter came to himself, he said, "Now I am sure that the Lord has sent his angel and rescued me from the hand of Herod and from all that the Jewish people were expecting." When he realized this, he went to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose other name was Mark, where many were gathered together and were praying. And when he knocked at the door of the gateway, a servant girl named Rhoda came to answer. Recognizing Peter's voice, in her joy, she did not open the gate, but ran in and reported that Peter was standing at the gate. They said to her, "You are out of your mind." But she kept insisting that it was so, and they kept saying, "It is his angel." But Peter continued knocking, and when they opened, they saw him and were amazed. But motioning to them with his hand to be silent, he described to them how the prison. And he said, "Tell these things to James and to the brothers." Then he departed and went to another place. Now when day came, there was no little disturbance among the soldiers over what had become of Peter. And after Herod searched for him and did not find him, he examined the sentries and ordered that they should be put to death. Then he went down from Judea to Caesarea and spent time there. Now Herod was angry with the people of Tyre and Sidon, and they came to him with one accord, having persuaded Blastus, the king's chamberlain, that they asked peace, because the country depended on the king's country for food. On an appointed day, Herod put on his royal robes, took his seat upon the throne, and delivered an oration to them. And the people were shouting, "The voice of God and not of a man." Immediately an angel of the Lord struck him down, because he did not give God the glory, and he was eaten by worms and breathed his last. But the word of God increased and multiplied, and Barnabas and Saul returned from Jerusalem when they had completed their service, bringing with them John, whose other name was Mark. Luke doesn't tell us much about James' death. It's very much just he's arrested and he's killed. That's as far as he goes. As much as he talks about Peter's, and I know Peter's has more of a story because he's released, but he does not tell much about James. We know that James is killed with a sword. We know from that it's a beheading. There's a story of when, this is not in Scripture, this is just an outside story, that when James is beheaded, that it moved one of the soldiers that was standing by so much at the beheading that he actually converted to Christianity and subsequently was killed. If it's true or not, we don't know. It's just one of those stories that gets passed down, but it is interesting nonetheless. And when he had seen that it pleased the Jews, so he decided, well, I need to arrest someone else. Again, Herod is he's a good politician. Is he doing it out of his love for the Judaism and he wants to please the Jews because he likes them, or is he just a good politician? We don't know. But he continues to arrest people. And does he arrest, is Peter I'm going to arrest another apostle and Peter happens to be the one that he gets? Or does he know that Peter is, in some extent, one of the lead apostles? And he's like, this is the one I need to get. I need to get the top dog. I want the leader of them, basically. But he arrests him in the days of unleavened bread. You see here, it's unleavened bread and during the Passover. And he knows that Passover would be here on the 15th, or around, yeah. And he arrests him, and he understands that he can't kill Peter at that point. Even though Jesus is killed during Passover, it's kind of a frowned upon thing in Jewish thing. We're celebrating leaving Egypt. We're not killing people at this point in time. So he's like, I'm going to hold up on this, but afterwards we're going to do it. So he sends 4 squads of soldiers, so you have 4 groups of 4 groups, 16 soldiers in total, split in 4, because you have 4 watches of the night. So it's like, we're going to watch this guy through the night, and you're going to both take your watch. That way you're fully alert. We're not allowing Peter out because we need to kill the guy. Well, nonetheless, he is going to be. So Peter is sleeping between 2 soldiers, and he's chained up. And there's a question, is he chained to the floor? Is he chained to the wall? I think there's a possibility that he's chained to the soldiers, he's actually chained. That way, if he tries to go, one of the soldiers come with him, if not both of them. Like, you're not getting away. We are here. You want to go, you're going to have to carry us with you. And then you have 2 soldiers guarding the gate. And then the angel comes in. When I think of doing a prison break, this is not how I think of doing it. Because it's just, no. I mean, he comes in, he shines a bright light, and he strikes Peter, and he yells what seems to be a yell, "Get up quickly." I think of doing prison break when sometimes me and my brothers would stay up late in the night, longer than we should. And the next morning, we have to get up and we have to go do something. So one of us would wake up, maybe 2 of us would wake up. But one of us often, if you have 3 brothers, one of us is going to be too tired to wake up. We don't want to wake up. And you'd get up, you'd maybe turn the closet light on, so it's a little light in the room, and you'd tap them gently, "Wake up," nothing too harsh. And they don't want to wake up. But after a while, you got them by the shoulders. You turn the main light, you got them, and you're no longer using an inside voice. It is, "Wake up, we have got to go." That's how I imagine the angel coming in. I mean, he comes in, he shines this bright light. It is, you cannot miss the light. Strikes him in the side, we don't know how hard, you don't know, but hits him and says, "Get up quickly, let's go." So they get up and they start going. The chains have fallen off, they're past the guards, and Peter has had the vision of the net, or the sheet that comes down. He sees all the animals. So he's thinking, this is not real. There is no way this is real. I mean, we just got through the guards, we came to the main gate in the city, and it just opened up like a Walmart door does when you walk up to it. It just opens up. In 40 BC, they did not have that kind of knowledge, AD. They did not have that kind of technology to just automatically open doors. So everything about this is a vision. It's not real. It can't be real. I've had a vision before. What is the moral of the story? Then the angel leaves him, and now he knows that he is free, that he actually is. So he has to go somewhere. So he goes to the house of Mary, who's John Mark's mother, who would later become a companion of Paul and then get fired, consequently. But for a while, he is with Paul. And he gets to the door, and he knocks on the door. And the servant comes to the door, and she's like, "Okay, who's there?" And Peter's like, "It's me." No, Peter's in prison. It can't be you. But she recognizes Peter's voice. So she's like, "Okay, it's Peter." And instead of being like, "Okay, it's Peter, you're out there. People probably, if you're out there, you may be free. Maybe people are looking for you. Guess what? You should probably come into safety." She's like, no. I'm going to leave you out there, leave the door locked, and I'm going to go back and tell people about this. So she gets back to telling people about this, and their response is, "You're crazy." They've been praying all night. That is why they're there. They're praying for Peter's safety. They want Peter to be safe, and they're like, "You're crazy. You've been praying about this." You would think at this point, you would have the faith to be like, "Oh, it is. Yeah, that's what we were praying for. Of course Peter's out there." But instead it's, "No, you're out of your mind." Which begs the question, why is there doesn't seem to be very much faith in the people that are there, from what it appears. I mean, they have faith. They have enough faith that they're praying, but it's not like, it feels like they don't actually expect Peter to come out. Similar, I think, James, again, the account of James is very small. We don't know. It doesn't say anything. But I truly believe the church most likely prayed just as hard for James. We know the church is a church of prayer. The early church is very much is a church that prays when things are going well, when things are going bad. So I think they prayed just as hard for James. And James got killed anyway. So they get together and they're still praying for for Peter. But yet, it doesn't seem like they actually think he's going to make it out. They think tomorrow morning he's going to be dead. So in our own lives, there's often times where we'll pray for something, but there's a question, do we actually think it'll happen? Like we've seen the same situation come up so many times that we're like, okay, we're going to pray about it, but do we actually believe it's going to happen? And if we don't believe it's going to happen, if in our gut, we're like, most likely, the end result is going to be X. Do we continue to pray anyway, or do we say we're not going to bother praying? I think this is a great example that we can follow, that even in times when we maybe don't have the faith we should have, we continue to pray anyway. We continue to trust that everything will work out, even if the prayer doesn't get answered in the way that we wish it would get answered. Peter and James, one is saved, one is let out of prison, the other one is killed. There's also this question, why is life so unfair? Why is it that the same thing will happen? It can be an accident, whatever. And God will miraculously save the one person and the other person who won't. And we often wrestle with this. Did I keep going? And it seems sometimes like God does not answer every prayer. The reality is he does answer every prayer. But not every prayer he answers is a yes. Not always does he answer the prayer the way we wish he would. In Genesis, when God tells Abraham that he's going to destroy Sodom, Abraham does this thing where he's like, I'm going to negotiate with God to not have Sodom destroyed, which is not a great move. We don't have the right to negotiate with God. But God humors him. He's like, okay. And Abraham says, if there's 50 good people, holy people, followers of you in Sodom, will you not destroy the city? And he goes, yeah. And they keep coming down. They come all the way down to 10. And Abraham is like, okay, 10 people. If we can find 10 people in the city, will you not destroy them? And God is like, yes. If you find 10 people, we will not destroy it. There's not 10 people. And Abraham is then like, okay. He goes, gets Lot, and gets him out. God allowed Abraham to see something he doesn't generally let you and I see. He let Abraham see what he was seeing. Often we are outside. We don't get to see that. When God knows best, he knows what is best for the people. I truly believe if we had the opportunity to see what Abraham was allowed to see in that moment, we often would understand why God said no to some of our prayers, as badly as we wish those prayers to be answered. So there's a lot of times life is unfair, and you can take that as quite far, why some people have easy lives, others don't. But God knows best. God has the ability to really do as he please. We get back to Herod and the people of Tyre and Sidon. For some reason, he is angry at them. But they need peace. They've persuaded their king's chamberlain to ask for peace because their country is in need of food. In Acts 11:28 last week, we saw that Judea, the Israeli area place there, is in need for food. There's a famine wiping through it, and the church had been gathering food and money to send to Jerusalem. So there's a famine in the land. But some reason Herod's mad, so they're trying to make him get on his good side. So he comes out and he's dressed in his robe. Josephus says he's in silver, that he shines. And he sits down and he's going to give this speech. And he gives this speech to them. And they are doing everything they can to make him on their side. We want to win the guy over. So they go, the voice of God, not of a man. I mean, we're just going to kiss his hand, basically. I mean, we're going to do everything we can to make him like us. I mean, we're going to over-compliment him, basically. And the angel of God strikes him down. God did not strike him down when he killed James. God did not strike him down when he tried to kill Peter. But when he when he thought of the idea of him being a god, and he liked the idea and he was okay with it, at that point he has committed the sin that Lucifer commits, that got Lucifer banned from heaven. It truly is one of the great sins, and I think Agrippa Herod knows the Ten Commandments. I think he is into a lot of ways Jewish in practice, because when he came to Judea as king, he did the sacrifice. He had read the books of the law, the Torah, and he knew very well that there is no other God but God. There is not multiple gods. But I think the idea of him being God, the idea that he would be on the same level as great rulers of Rome, such as Julius Caesar, was too much for him to pass up. I mean, he wanted it. And he gets this thing by worms. And if you read Eusebius, you'll see that close to the front of the book is the story of his grandfather Herod, who has the disease of worms. I mean, he gets the same, his death is the same as his grandfather, who did a lot more atrocities in his life, but he still gets the same ending. In closing, there's times when our faith will be like those who are praying for Peter, who it's going to be weak. We are not. I think it is true that though we will have faith, our faith will at times be lacking. And the question is, what do we do in those moments? Do we continue to press on praying? Do we, as the apostles said to Jesus at one point when they couldn't cast someone out, a demon out, they said, Lord, increase our faith. Do we continue to ask that our faith would get increased, that we would continue to be made more like him, our will be transformed to what is God's will? And I think sometimes when we're praying, it's good to, in our prayers, even recognize, especially when we're asking things, as Jesus, when he's in the Garden of Gethsemane, he says, Lord, not my will, but your will be done. That we recognize that, yes, we are going to pray for things. And I think it is when bad things happen in our lives, either to friends, neighbors, other people, and we're asking for things. I think it is good to pray for those situations. But I think it's also good to recognize that we are not the ultimate decision maker. And when we are then told no in our prayers, do we become bitter at God? Do we say, well, God doesn't care about me, I'm going to walk away? Or do we recognize that if we were given the opportunity as Abraham did, we too would see it the way that Abraham did? With that, I will give the time over to Jason.